Welcome to the next episode and newest episode of the multi-award-winning Fierocast. I am your host, Mike Croyer. First, I would like to thank all of the listeners to making Fierocast the most listened to podcast for the Fiero. Fierocast has received at the end of 2025 another award from Corporate Concepts, the best single vehicle automotive podcast in the Midwest for 2025. Thank you for making Fierocast an award-winning podcast. Today, we are talking with Wayne Redline Zane. Some of you know him as our past Dr. Detail, but today we are going to be talking about auctions and how they work, how it is and set up for selling a car, and what happens when you bid and when you win a car. Wayne has been to a couple auctions, so we're going to pick his brain and kind of get a better idea of how auctions work. Again, I am your host, Mike Croyer, and you are listening to the newest episode of Fierocast, the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero and the Fiero community. You can find past Fierocast episodes at fierofocus.com, on our YouTube channel, or on our Facebook page. We would like to thank our Fierocast supporters for the 2026 season, the Fiero Store, Rodney Dickman, Bonter Solutions, the United Fiero Clubs, GoldenEye Graphic, the N.I.F.E store, N.I.F.E, Automodella, and new for this year, Fiero Austin and Tier 20 Customs. So thank you, Fiero Austin and Tier 20 Customs, for joining us on our Fierocast supporters list. It is much appreciated. If you would like to become a supporter of Fierocast, and we would generate a 20-second infomercial for you, you can email me and your info, and we will create and include the infomercial in one of our next Fierocasts at no charge to you. Free advertisement. How can you beat that? Are you repairing your Fiero or doing a 3800 supercharged engine swap? Fiero Austin has dozens of how-to videos, comprehensive instructions, and a budget-friendly parts list on Amazon and eBay, all free to use. He even goes free consultations. Fiero Austin is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pennox. Get started today at youtube.com/Fiero Austin. Are you looking for that special personalized Fiero gift for someone? Bonter Solutions can help you find that one-of-a-kind gift. Anything from folding chairs, luggage, tote bags, t-shirts, sweatshirts, drinkware, signs, and decorative items, plus so much more. You can design pretty much anything you want on them, from pictures of your car, your favorite sports team, a pet, or a saying that you may want. The list is endless. Minimums are just one each of any item, and best thing is that they do not charge for a setup fee. You can catch Bonter Solutions at several Fiero and Pontiac events in the area. Fiorama, the Dells Run, the Indian Uprising All Pontiac Show. So check out some of the newest items they have to offer, such as the 4-piece luggage set that fits perfectly in your Fiero, just like the original sets. Their custom tumblers, their custom puzzles, and their very popular duffel bag and folding chair. Feel free to visit their website at bontergifts.com. All right, before I begin with our guest tonight, I wanted to give a little bit of background about our guest, Wayne Zane. You know him as our resident Dr. Detail from his writings in Fiero Focus magazine and around town a lot at local shows. Not all of his cars by now, you would recognize them with the red line on there. So he goes by either Wayne Redline Zane or Wayne Dr. Detail Zane.
Absolutely.
See, what Wayne not only is in the world of Fieros, he also has a Canadian-made yellow Formula, but also has a variety of other show cars in his famous garage mahal. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But Wayne has been around the show and in auction world for some time now. So he has had a handful of vehicles that are top notch. not only in rarity, but also in the detail aspect of it. He puts a lot of time in not in basically caring for all the vehicles that he has and has over time. Um, in it's like you look at it as with his cars, the 3 second rule on dropping a piece of food on the floor, and if you pick it up, it's still safe to eat. You could drop a piece of food on his cars. I don't recommend it, but you could drop a piece of food on his cars, let it sit there for like an hour, and it's still good to eat. So there's just nothing on his cars. Um, and it is something that just to see the detail of his cars. So okay, well let's get into it. Wayne, welcome to Fierocast.
Thank you
And
so much.
the first time we had talked to you has probably been a good 5 years when we talked on a segment of Doctor Detail.
That
So
is
welcome back.
correct. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a
But
while.
but today we're going to talk about auctions, and I know there's a lot of um, things that people don't understand about auctions, how they function, what are reserves. If it doesn't hit a reserve, is the car
What
then just
happened? Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
let's briefly talk about your car history and what you have had and what you have now. The one unique thing that Wayne has in his garage, like I said, is a yellow Formula, Canadian made. And but when did you decide to enlarge the garage and for it to become the Garage Mahal?
Space is at a premium in any kind of garage. And if you're a collector like I am, you want to add to your collection if at all possible. We maxed out with the old garage, which held three cars in it relatively nicely, and wanted to add on because I'm a touchy feely kind of guy. Plus, if you store a car, it's like $125 per month. And for a limited time, that's not a big deal. But if you're storing a car for 10 years, it's a huge number. That being said, we elected to build an additional three-car garage. And now I can accommodate seven cars in my garage mahal, which is really, really cool.
What are some of the unique cars in the garage?
Well, you got to say the Formula Fiero. That is the pièce de résistance of my particular collection. I fell in love with that car. Love at first sight when I saw it at the dealership. A little dealership in Westmont, Illinois. You know what I mean? And did the deal on that. That's there. We have also an '01 Sunset Orange Trans Am with T-tops. One of seven. We have like a Ron Fellows 2007 Z06, number 320 of the 399 produced back in '07, an '08 Saturn Sky Ragtop, an '02 Toyota MR2S Spider convertible, and an '08 Chrysler Crossfire, which I just picked up about a year ago from Speedway Auto Mall, which is part of the Mecum organization.
Wow.
That's the little fleet in the little old garage mahal.
All right. So, it's probably going to go back many, many years. What was your very first, when we'll say either show car or car that you bought that you wanted to reserve for shows?
Pardon me?
So, what was your first car
Oh,
that you purchased as far as what you wanted to become either a prized possession of your collection or a show car?
this is really cool. What is it? In 1999, Marsh and I went up to a Mecum auction in Wisconsin, like right by Milwaukee over there. It was in like a park setting, so to speak, with a little auction house, which was jerry rigged in order to accommodate it. We saw at that particular time the '84 Indy Fiero, which I would ultimately acquire. Was I a bidder at that particular auction? Absolutely not. I was just looking. The car, the '84 Fiero, did not sell. I then talked to Dana Meekum, who owns the car. Was it a dealer car, whatever? He provided that information, and the next couple of days, I contacted the dealer and bought the car. Now, here is a really cool thing. I am driving the Fiero back from Milwaukee to my home in Crystal Lake. What's happened to Wayne? It's a long time. Marcia gets worried about me. The car died on the interstate.
Wow.
I was befriended by a guy with a Chrysler minivan who took me to a Pontiac dealer over there, which is really close to the expressway. They then towed the car to the dealership and repaired it. In a couple of days, I brought it home for the first time. But you know how embarrassing that was? Coming home that night with a rental car, not your newly acquired '84 Indy Fiero. Marcia she would laugh like a son of a gun at my expense. Hey, way to go sometimes. But
So
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that's trust me, that's happened to me a few times on the highway, whether it was a flat tire or my timing gear had busted on me, and I know how
Oh,
that feels.
you don't need that. That is not a fun place to be. No, 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 no.
Right. And so before we jump into the main topic, but I also wanted to kind of refresh everybody's memory as well. So you are, the king of detailing. I mean, you're out there with toothbrushes and towels and scrubbers, and so we see that at the shows. But what goes into, we'll say, the background of it when you bring a new car home, or we'll say a new car to you is, but a show car, we'll
Mhm.
say, but a newer car to the garage mahal.
Mhm.
What is your
Well,
process to go into getting it prepped for detailing?
well, let's say the car is fine. You detail it. Let's give a specific example. Last year at Fiero Rama, I brought the formula down there. It took me approximately 2 days of detailing an already very well detailed car, which won at the Invitational Geneva Concours d'Elegance of 2 years before that, as a prep for the show. When I got to your particular show, our show, it took me another hour and 15 minutes to re-clean the car, do the tires, do the wheels, do the body, do the windows, do a little vacuuming and use Swiffers, do the engine bay, all that kind of great stuff. You want to put the car in the best possible position because I wanted to impress my peer group, my fellow Fiero enthusiasts. This was my game plan on it. And I think I accomplished that. However, the funny thing about last year, I didn't win anything, in the low mileage class, which is sort of surprising. And I was listening to some of the guys over there. Some guy who won in that class just took his car and went through a car wash supposedly and beat me. Well, that's cool. You can't win them all, and that was a real interesting time. You know. And the funny thing about it, the year before seemed to be a heck of a lot of traffic in and around the low mileage class. Last year, I don't think it was as good. Not as many
Mhm.
people, and I was very surprised at that. Mhm.
Well, like I said, you have a, we'll say, a uniqueness to detail, and it does stand out. And like I said,
Thank
it's one of those things where, not, I mean, you have the the people that, and this is all car show people, that they'll really only clean it the day of, but and it's just one of those things where it does take time, and you have to find time in order to get down to the nitty gritty and stuff like that. So,
Absolutely, absolutely, and
but
it's a
yeah,
labor of love. It's
it
not a
is. It is.
situation. You really enjoy all of the activity therein. And I just thrive on it, so to speak. And I like to put the car, being Doctor Detail, especially with the Fiero Club, N.I.F.E.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can't just assume people are going to vote for you. You have to make the car look as good as possible. I take absolutely in any show, and especially at Fiero Rama, anything for granted. I always go or attempt to go a little bit further to make the car really look good and to have my peers appreciate what I got there.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And I think you do. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So let's shift gears and let's talk about some auctions. And
Okay.
most of everybody knows about the two main auction houses, Barrett Jackson and Mecum. But
Correct.
we're not going to cover just those two. We're going to cover a whole gamut of auction houses. And now, again, most people think that that the cars that cross the auction blocks are pristine, uh, machines that are coming across that block. But not a lot of people know that also barn finds come across those blocks.
That
Not,
is correct.
some have visible rust on them. So it's a mix of things that come across the auction blocks. But what we hear most are those pristine ones that go for a couple 100,000, a couple million, stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
um, before we jump into the nitty gritty, how many auctions have you been involved with?
Oh
As
my
either
God.
as if a seller or a bidder, and just we're gonna kind of break it down so everybody kind of really understands how auctions work.
Okay. For my little history, it started in 1999 with the Mecum auction in Milwaukee, where I ultimately acquired the '84 Indy Fiero, and have been going to auctions from that time forward. Really, to tell everybody about what I've done. Have I ever acquired a car directly at an auction? The word is absolutely not. Reason being, I am too slow. But in my opinion, it's better to be too slow than to be too fast and buy something that you really don't want. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. Um, and there's many ways that you can attend an auction, if I'm saying this right. In
Mhm.
person, online, over the phone. And what are some of if are those the main?
You can also get a proxy, a gentleman, an individual to represent your interest and to bid on a car on your behalf at an auction if you can't make it there. But in my personal opinion, if you're going to be a bidder, you want to be there to inspect the car yourself, not give it to somebody else. That's like negligent entrustment. What you think is really good it might not be the same to that other individual. You do it yourself, and then bid yourself. Have the control that you have over there. Set a predetermined budget for the car. Ask as many questions as you possibly can of the consignor if he or she is available with the car. That is usually a hit or miss kind of deal. If not, the car hiker who is responsible to take that car to the block, try to talk to that individual to really get the skinny as how good, bad, or indifferent that car may be. A specific time I was at the Barrett Jackson auction in Scottsdale in 2000, was it 19? I was very interested because I did my prep work on it and located an '87 Fiero GT in maroon that was coming across the block. I wanted to go big time to that show, and I convinced my best friend, let's go and check it out. He also had a couple of cars that he was looking at. But you do the due diligence on it. You find the car with respect to the vehicle you want to go. You go there, then you start asking questions. Get as much information as possible on the car. With that particular car, it was missing the wheel cover lock, which is a big deal if you have a flat tire. It only had one key, but the overall condition of the car was exemplary. Now, on that particular car, I had a budget. My budget was $12,000. I bid up to 9,500. I was about to, wait to see if it was going to sell, and it didn't. Somebody bid 10,000, and it was what they call a quick hit with the old hammer. And I didn't have an opportunity then to bid up to 10,500. I lost the car,
That sucks.
unfortunately.
But okay,
Yeah,
so um, on a side note, when you say a quick hammer, so is there a time limit, or is there something where if somebody is like you said, they bid 10,000 and the hammer came
it's
down, they didn't
it's
give anybody else options?
no, it's just how quick the bidder, how quick you're going to do it. And in that particular case, it was very, very quick, which did not give me an opportunity, in my opinion, to bid it up, unfortunately. The
Gotcha,
auctioneer just went really quick on it, moved the car out to something else. But
gotcha.
remember, in that particular auction, I think they had 3,000 cars going across the block in
Wow,
about a week or so. So they move them out really, really fast. And if you're too slow, and I was definitely too slow, you miss the car. But I could not emphasize this enough. I would rather be too slow than too fast and acquire something I don't want. That doesn't check out.
gotcha. So we know. I mean, most people know about the main two. Barrett Jackson, they have auctions from Florida to California, and they're
Tremendous venues all out through
yep,
the United
yep,
States. Absolutely. Yeah.
and they're on TV. I think the Speed Network, Speed Channel, and then other one is Mecum, and they do the same thing. They televise some of their stuff. They're local, right? They're based up right out across the border of Illinois, Wisconsin, if I'm not correct,
That is
right?
correct. Yeah.
Right. So they hold a fairly big auction at the Schaumburg Renaissance in Schaumburg, Illinois, and we had the pleasure of going to one of those. And it is a sight to see. I mean, you can see inside, outside the cars that are parked, and then when they start going through on the block, it's pretty impressive.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah. Very.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so, but there's other ones too that I mean I wasn't 100% aware of, but you've got Russo and Steel, Goodings and Company, R.M. Sotheby's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are those just as big, or I mean, are they kind of like on the small end where they're more local than national?
Definitely much more smaller. Sotheby's is very, very high end. You have to be six, seven-figure cars therein, way, way above my particular budget. With respect to Russo and Steel, when I was in Scottsdale in 2019 before COVID, my buddy and I went to a Russo and Steel auction, which was going on at the same time the Barrett Jackson auction was going down. We went to it to compare and contrast, see the cars over there. I sort of didn't like that as much because a lot of the cars are outside on grass. And the night before, it was a fairly significant rain in Phoenix. And it was horrible trudging through all that kind of stuff. And when one of the cars were brought into the particular auction area, the arena, it was much smaller. It wasn't as nice. And the cars did not have the same quality as was presented by the Barrett Jackson automobiles. Now, that was my experience with Russo and Steel. Nice company and all that stuff, but if you compare it dead on to like Barrett Jackson or Mecum, not as good, in my opinion.
What now you said like with Sotheby's and stuff like that, they're more on the six figure cars coming across, but
Six, seven, oh yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. What
Mercedes, we were talking, Rolls Royces, are part of their particular bill of fare, so to speak.
wow. Like probably okay, yeah, yeah. What what would you say on average is Barrett Jackson and Mecum for the average person just kind of trying to get an idea of, you got the other three, but we know that we're not going to be able to go to the Sotheby one because of the price there. But what would you say would be the average medium then for a Barrett Jackson and Mecum auction?
The cool thing about Barrett Jackson and Mecum, they run for a variety, for their bigger auctions especially. They go for a week or 10 days. They start out in a small way. Beginning cars, the beginning type of automobile you want to get for a collector automobile. Then as the thing goes down to like Saturday, the cars increase in value and the prices go up as you go to Saturday, where the highest end cars are out for an auction, so to speak. Really, really cool. And people, if you want to get into the auction and buy a car that way, you do it the first couple of days.
Wow.
And you can get a good car between $10,000 and $15,000. But you have to
Okay.
do your homework, check out, and it's so nice about Mecum as well as Barrett Jackson. They have a brochure and it's online. It indicates very specifically the cars which are going across the block, which day they're going across the block, and all the equipment on the automobile, overall condition and stuff like that. Now, very importantly, Barrett Jackson and any Mecum house, does not certify what the consignor indicated about his or her automobile. They certify nothing. That is the particular buyer has to do his or her homework to confirm or deny the accuracy of what the consignor is stipulated to. And if there's any issue, it's between the consignor and the buyer. The auction company is
So
totally out of it.
I was gonna say,
Very
so
significant.
they basically they're just there to help you sell that car.
Precisely.
You
They
showcase
bring
it,
buyers
and
and sellers
yep,
together as a wonderful medium in order to examine automobiles, to look at automobiles. And you when you're there, you have the ability to really look at these cars, really close on. You can see all the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I tell you, with respect to Barrett Jackson and Mecum, which is very close in quality to Barrett Jackson, they're outstanding. Now, Schaumburg, we mentioned that. Mecum is no longer doing auctions in Schaumburg. They
good to
got
know.
a lot of criticism over the years, the last couple of years. They had it in Schaumburg. It was like a used car auction where dealers were bringing their stock, unwashed, uncleaned, basically, to go through the auction.
Oh wow,
It totally blew everybody's mind. I've seen it deteriorate the last, 3 years over there, and they just stopped. There,
interesting. Good to know.
Schaumburg will come back maybe at a later point in time, but right now, nothing.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
as auctions go on, I've heard of certain vehicles coming across that go for extremely high dollar amounts,
Hmm.
and some of these cars that come across the block are, we'll say, maybe some replicas, but um, pro athlete vehicles. I know at one point, I think I saw a Michael Jordan Rolls Royce come across the auction block.
Okay, that's
Just
good.
most recently at Barrett Jackson, again, I don't know if it was an original or if it was a replica, but a 1957 Ecto One, Ghostbusters Ecto One. The last one I went to at Mecum and in Schaumburg, there was a screen used Hero season 6 kit car. It was a convertible that went across the block, and I
Very cool.
remember that because I did watch that one. I did my homework on that one, and it was an authentic screen used convertible, hardtop convertible, and it had everything that because that was one of my favorite shows, and I've got a collection of Knight Rider memorabilia,
Oh, outstanding, outstanding.
and it's just one of those things that drew my eye, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this would go, how much this is going for.
Hmm.
And I remember that the starting bid on that was $8,500, but at the end of the day, it crossed the block and it sold for almost 50.
I
So
hear
it's
you.
like something that I would be like, ooh, I could afford that. And,
Hmm.
like you said, set a budget, but then it was almost like, yeah, it got up to 50. I'm like, that's way past my budget on that one, even though it would be cool to see. But the auctions are opened up for those type of vehicles as well. Whether
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
comes straight from the athletic, the professional athlete, or movie houses, because I know the big one was, and I don't remember what auction house housed them, but the big one in the most recent years was the auction of the GM Heritage Center cars back, I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say back in, um, what, 2015 to 2020, somewhere in there, maybe
Yeah.
before that.
Mhm.
Um, and all those cars had went to auction as well, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I
All right.
tell you, the
Yeah.
provenance of a movie car and a celebrity car, it adds value to prospective buyers of those automobiles. I've seen Burt Reynolds cars go, Ellis Cooper's, Sammy Hagar's for big bucks
Hmm.
because of the connection between those celebrities and their automobile.
I will say before we jump into the next segment here, um, I will say the one thing that I see as a constant, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, the constant that I see is when cars cross the auction block to and become homes to the new owners, you very rarely see those cars. They never are seen in public. Why is that? I would say, like, I win this car at an auction. I'm showing this thing. I'm taking this thing out to shows. I'm going around town with it. I mean, why did they disappear once they go into the new hands?
I have no idea. I know if I bought a car from Barrett Jackson or Mecum, I would be more than happy once I got it back home to detail it and to take it out to as many shows
Hmm.
as possible. Seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But some people with a collector car, like a real high end vet or something like that, a ZR1, they get it, they put it in their garage, and it is hopefully it'll appreciate significantly in value.
Hmm.
A good example of that was like the 78 Corvette pace car. They made 6,000 of them from the factory, and there are 12,000 clones out there in addition to the 6,000. Did those cars go crazy money? No, they did not. Reason being, there were too many of them.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of jumping around, and when you look at like sports cards or Pokemon cards, what drives the
Mhm.
value of those cards is one of ones, or
Yeah, that's
one of a set of 10. So but yes, I agree. When there's so many of that style car, or so many of that, they say, oh, it's the rarest car, but you created 15,000 of them. What makes that car rare? Because it's a low number, or so no, I yeah. So
production numbers. And
yeah.
I tell you, the mileage on the car is another tell, so to speak, which has a direct impact on what bidders will bid for those automobiles or not. When I was in Kissimmee last year with my buddy Rick, there were five Grand Sport 96 cars that went across the block. Four were coupes, one was a convertible. The rarest thing on a Grand Sport 96 is a red interior. Of the five cars, four of them had the red interiors. I was expecting those cars to go really big bucks.
Hmm.
They did not. They were going between 28 and $35,000, the ones which had a few miles on them. The car which had 1,500 miles went for like 75,000, if my memory serves me correct. That car should have gone for 100.
Wow.
All those cars were depressed. Now, I bring this information back. I have a 96 Grand Sport. What do I want to do with it? Well, what I opted to do was I sold it. I traded it in, believe it or not, for a 2000 or 2008 Chrysler Crossfire. Now, the cool thing about it, I bought it from Speedway, which is part of the Mecum organization.
Hmm.
They were happy to acquire my Grand Sport. I made a couple of bucks on it. Plus, the cool thing about it, I didn't have to pay tax. Whoa. Thank
Wow.
you very much.
Exactly. So I
That's the
mean,
way to buy it.
right, right. So
Absolutely.
it, in our conversation so far, we've kind of touched on buyers and sellers. What what do you I mean, do you need to be an auction pro to attend one of the showcases? And you know, most of the time, like you said, like with Barrett Jackson, they're out of state. So you got to account for travel plans and
Oh, I can tell you all about that. Yeah.
yeah, right. And then, when it comes to the actual auction process,
Mhm.
w- let's discuss what a cosigner is, which is a seller, and
Mhm.
what is the role of the cosigner.
Mhm. I mean, the whole thing. First of all, you got to be very, very careful. The role. What was the first question, Ben? Mike, part of this.
So
So
like,
most
what
people.
do you need to be a pro in order to
Okay.
attend an auction? I mean, like you said, you do need to um do your due diligence and learn about the car that you're getting, but that's the car. Those are the vehicles that you're doing your due diligence on. But like you said, you could be fast, you could be slow, but that's on the bidder. But well, we're gonna kind of touch in on what the cosigner does, what you have to do to get that car into that auction house too.
Sure, I'll be happy to talk about it. Well, um, you have to do your due diligence. No two ways about it. And you don't have to be an absolute auction pro in order to go to an auction and to bid. The only thing is, you have to do your homework. You have to be an expert on the type of automobile that you're interested in. You have to know what the range and price would be for that car, low, mid, high, how that particular automobile is regarded by the auction house and your opinion of it, which has an impact on what you're going to potentially pay for it. You don't have to be an expert, but you better be an expert at the auction, but you have to be an expert on the automobile that you have an intention of buying or bidding on. Very,
Okay.
very, very importantly.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that too. But those are all really good points because for, case in point, if I were to go, I would just be like, ooh, yeah, raise my hand. Ooh, raise my hand. But, yeah, I mean, it's something that there's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't know. And especially like with if you're looking to sell a vehicle, um, that's a big role too, because you have to do your homework on that too, because you can't just go into this auction saying I want $200,000 for this car, and the car is only worth 10 to start with, right? I mean, so
Absolutely.
what is the process of a co-signer then?
Well, if you want to nominate your car to put it in an auction, what you're obligated to do once you ascertain, is it Barrett Jackson, is it Russo and Steele, is it Mecum, you have to find an auction house which is going to do service to the automobile that you're going to present to them. Once you determine which auction house you're going to use, you fill out an application. You provide photographic information on the car. You give a story of the car, how long you've owned it. You have to stipulate if it had any accidents, any big issues with respect to it. You don't want to misrepresent something because it could come back and haunt you at a later point in time. You want to be totally and completely honest in the representation of the car. Also, you would put a range on the car, what you think it should fetch. And then the auction house will look at that information, confirm or deny if you're on point, or discuss it with you. If they are interested in the car, you proceed forward. You are then obligated, then the consignor, to get that car to the auction house. If you live in Chicago and you're going to Barrett Jackson in Scottsdale, it's the seller's obligation to pay and to get that car to Barrett Jackson in Phoenix. Once the car gets there, it's not the auction house's obligation to clean it. You have to either engage a vendor or the auction house will do that for it at your expense to clean that particular car up and put it in the best possible look for the auction, so to speak.
So you bring up a good point on transportation. So I understand that, once it gets there, you're on the hook for cleaning it if you don't want to clean it yourself. You have a company come in and clean it. Now, on the transportation end of it, so if somebody gives, if you say I'm going to put this car on the auction block at 35,000, does that number also include the detailing and the transportation, or is that just the value of the car?
That's just the price of the car to cross the block.
So
it
everything
has
else,
to do with, yeah, that's all.
Okay.
It's all a
So
la carte.
Okay. So yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, okay, if it's going to cost me $10,000 to get the car there, to detail it, and all that other stuff that's going on with the car, you can't up the cost from 35 to 45 to recoup that. That everything is then on the seller to pay those out of pocket.
You have to factor that in. Now, to give you an illustration, let's say we want to take a car to Barrett Jackson in Scottsdale. Okay. For a January show, it would probably cost you about $1,200 to get the car from Chicago to Phoenix. If the car sells, great. Or if it doesn't sell it and goes and the bid goes on, which is a great thing they have to sell cars which don't cross the block and get sold. If it doesn't sell it, the bid goes on. Then the seller is obligated to get that car back home to Chicago. That's another $1,100.
Mm-hmm.
Big bucks. Plus, it's like $500 or $750, depending on the auction house and the time of it, to get your car into that particular auction. Okay? Big bucks. And then you have to figure airfare to get out there if you want to go take a look at it yourself, hotel, rental car, food, and lodging. This is like a very, very expensive proposition.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at the whole thing. If you're going to go, if you want to do that, you have to contact an airline, get a ticket as far in advance as possible, which is the cheapest ticket. Book a hotel as far in advance to get the best possible rate. Similarly with the car rental. But those are real hard and fast costs, so to speak.
Yeah.
You figure
I agree.
$200 a day for room and board. Seriously.
Yeah.
But by being a bidder at some of these, especially Mecum and Barrett Jackson, you have perks that they give you.
Mm.
You get a vouchers for $200 worth of food. You have unlimited beer and wine if you're so inclined. You have beautiful little rest areas, for so to speak, where you can bid and eat and have a great time at the auction houses and look at the cars going across the block. It's terrific. You know what I mean? And like
So
Barrett Jackson,
they give you
yeah,
perks, which is nice. I mean, yeah, I mean that's nice. I mean, you're spending all this money out there, and they're at least kind of giving you something for that, which is nice. Who who actually has the final say on if the car is, we'll say, eligible to go across, or do they accept all types of cars that
they do not accept all types of cars. No.
yeah.
Um, these particular auction houses, the creme de la creme. Meekum, going back to the Schomburg example where they were having auctions here, they were too liberal, in my opinion, in what they accepted as cars for that particular auction. They were not show quality automobiles, four-door sedans, Lincoln Continentals, boring, boring, boring. And they weren't nice. The auction house has the right and they have the privilege of either accepting your car, the amount that you want to sell the car for, or not. And it's a process where you can meet with them telephonically to go over that, to get to a number that you both can live with. And if they want to represent your car at the auction. Really cool.
So going back to, we'll say that standard number of 35,000, that 35,000, does that cost or price tag have the percentages that go to the seller or the buyer or the auction house, or is all of that added on at the end of the day to that final price?
Here's the beautiful reality of the situation. If the car sells and goes across the block for $35,000, the seller, consignor, is obligated to pay 10% of that $35,000 to the auction house, and 10% of that likewise for the buyer. They get 20% between the buyer and the seller, predicated on the $35,000 number. They make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I believe that Meekum in Kissimmee this year, I believe the gross sales either 300 or 400 million.
Wow.
I wouldn't write that in marble, but it was way, way up there.
Wow.
And that's how they make their money.
So when you're talking budget, you need to make sure that you have that number in your budget as well.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And then you got to ship the car back because, would you want to drive a brand new acquired auction car from Phoenix, Arizona back to Chicago? It's an unproven commodity.
Yeah.
You want to take that thing and put it in an enclosed trailer, not an open one, because God forbid if it's bad weather, get it back to Chicago, then check it out once you get it home. If it has a mechanical problem here, it's a hell of a lot better than on the road coming back from Phoenix to Chicago, Illinois.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But you got that expense. That's a lot of bucks. Then you got to pay tax on it when you register the car in the state of Illinois.
Yep.
If you paid $35,000 for the car, that's the number you're using with the state of Illinois. Tax is predicated on that particular number. Big. You got to be real careful what you're doing.
Yeah.
Really.
No. Yeah. I 100% understand. When car is selected, then and everything is signed off on, who and how does it determine where and when that car is placed? So earlier you talked about maybe on a Thursday, Friday, we'll say the lower end price tag cars go across first, and then the higher middle to higher end go across on Saturday and Sunday. Is that always the case, or is it just as the cars are registered into that particular auction, that's their number?
No. There is a rhyme and reason to this, really. The auction house and the consignor have an opportunity to discuss where they want to place that particular automobile in the auction. The beginning, the middle, or the end. Now, if it's an end car, it better be a six-figure automobile to begin with. But let's say beginning or the middle. That and your fee is graduated based upon when it goes in.
Okay.
I have seen people with absolutely spectacular automobiles. One guy had a 98 Corvette pace car convertible. It was one of the first cars to go across the block when the auction started. There were hardly anybody at that particular auction. It was a non-reserve. No, Barrett Jackson is non-reserved. And that car it sold for $15,000. Way under the money on a car that had 2,000 miles. It should have gone for $30,000 to $40,000. But that's the price you pay. You're trying to maximize your return on the car, but you're putting it in a time when it shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
These buyers are not there at that juncture in time.
So like that Thursday would be classified, we'll say, as a travel day. So your peak buyers aren't going to get there until sometime Friday, and maybe not attend the auctions until maybe Saturday and Sunday.
Well, they usually start like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the bigger ones. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can get some really nice cars and not have to pay through the nose, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But toward the end, we're talking high-end stuff. We're talking incredible automobiles. But they are non-reserve, but they're going to go for big bucks.
Yeah.
So you bring up, whoa, forget it, baby.
Exactly. Now you bring up a word that I know everybody has heard, but not everybody understands. Reserve. What is the difference between a reserve vehicle that comes across the block and a non-reserve vehicle? Because again, I know people know that word, but they just don't quite understand.
What does it really mean? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I love the term reserve. Reserve is a term designed to protect the consignor. Okay. Reserve is a number that is agreed to by the auction house and the consignor that the car has to meet and the auctioneer has to get before the car sells. Okay.
So it's not the starting bid. That's not the.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Let's say using your 35,000 example. It's like, okay, great. The consignor and the auction house agree this car should go for 35,000. If the car doesn't meet the $35,000 as it goes across the block, it doesn't sell because it didn't meet the reserve. If it hits the reserve for 35,000 and goes over it, that's well and good. More money for the particular auction house and the consignor, but it's a protection. You didn't give it away. Now, in a non-reserved auction, same car. If it goes across the auction block, there is no number it has to meet in order to qualify to be sold.
Okay.
The high number at the end of the bidding is what that car will sell for. If the $35,000 wonderful, the idea of itself only goes for 15 is what the buyer will pay for that car. And the consignor takes it in the shorts.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, what is the best route?
It depends. If you feel lucky, speaking for myself, if I would ever have a car go across an auction, it would have to have a reserve on it to protect me and my interests on it. Really. Okay. Now, if you feel like, there's a certain momentum in a non-reserve. Everybody knows every car that goes across that block will sell. And there's an excitement that builds into it. Okay. And you usually can do okay. But God forbid there's not two people interested in your car when it goes across that block. Because if there's only one person, it ain't going to go for big bucks.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't have the protection of the reserve to protect your financial interests.
Yeah.
Big, significant difference.
Yes. Thank you. And that helps. That helps. And I hope that helps everybody else too that has, kind of what is reserve. So now,
funny thing, Barrett Jackson is great for non-reserve, and they're fine. But about 10 years ago, they were in the Scottsdale auction house. Cars were not making a lot of money. Bidders, in order to obviate the problem about the last bid gets the car, they had to bid for their car. They're actually bidding to get their car. They're offering money. In order to do that, the reason they did that is they didn't want to give it away. Then they have to pay this consignment fees and all that kind. That's ridiculous. That was horrible.
Wow.
That really happened about 10, 15 years ago.
Wow. Interesting.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. Not
So,
good.
all right. So as we're, as we're sitting there as the consigner, that it goes across, or it's sitting on the block, and whether it doesn't sell or it sells, we'll say this particular car for 35,000 sold.
Okay.
The hammer comes down. Is there any other option that somebody can still bid on that car after it moves across? Or on the flip side, it doesn't sell and moves across the block. Can you still bid on that car?
Here's the two illustrations. With the Fiero in 2019 that I didn't get, the hammer came down at $10,000. It's sold. There is no recourse by me ipso facto whatsoever. If car goes across the block, it doesn't sell and goes to the bid goes on category, there is dialogue between prospective buyers and the auction house to come to a particular agreement as to what that car is worth. And then a lot of those particular cars do in fact sell by way of the bid goes on category. It's really
okay. So on the bid goes on category, then it kind of narrows down to we'll say if there was 4 people bidding on it, then they go to those 4 people and off, outside of that and say, do you want to go to the next level? Do you want
anybody could bid on that car? The 4 principals at the auction, the 2 principals, whatever. It's open to anybody.
Okay.
At that juncture in time. Seriously.
Okay. Yeah. So now that the car, we'll say again, we're going sticking with the $35,000 car. That car, the hammer comes down. It is now sold. Does that immediately change possession to the bidder right then and there, or is there a grace period, or how does that look at from the co-signer's like, all right, I'm free and clear of this car now, or is there a grace period that has to kind of accompany the winning bid?
There is absolutely no grace period.
Okay.
When that car is hammered, sold, ownership of the automobile goes from the consigner to the buyer. And the buyer at that juncture in time has to get insurance on that automobile quick, really fast.
So they got to basically be in contact with their agent saying, hey, I'm going to this auction. You got to be available if I do win this car then.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should give them a heads up. And the deal is with most collector car policies, the wording that they use, notify them as soon as practicable of your acquiring that automobile. And what you paid for it and what you paid for it at that time will be the agreed to value at that juncture in time, which can be increased at a later point in time. It's not like a conventional automobile policy where you have 30 days in order to give them notice of the change. Mm-hmm. With the collector car, and which these are always in, you got to give them as soon as possible. When I buy a car, I've always, immediately before I even took the car off of the lot, so to speak, I communicate with my agent, put it on my policy, it's done. No ifs, ands, or buts of it, because God forbid there's a problem. You have a loss, so to speak. Oh, man, you don't need it, man. No. You don't need that kind of aggravation. No.
So, again, I'm just a personal opinion. What would you say the average, so if 300 cars go across the auction block, what would you say would be the average amount of cars that actually sell? I know based on no reserve, but usually in a typical week of an auction, do they usually sell most of those cars, or?
Well, going back to Barrett Jackson is a non-reserve auction. They all sell there. Mecum is a reserved auction. Now, with Mecum or any other auction house, results vary based upon the venue. Okay? If you're in Glendale, like Mecum auctions, they're going to be coming up. It's going to be in Glendale, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Indianapolis, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Harrisburg, Monterey, which is a place I'd like to go to, Vegas, and Kansas City. Certain places like Harrisburg, they may not have the hit ratio that a Las Vegas or a Monterey would have. It depends on the mix of cars that go there. But
Mm.
it's really, really very hard to predict, you know. And the excitement, of these auctions, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, like I said, I've only gone to one. I've seen a couple on TV, but I've gone to the one here in Schaumburg, and I some of the cars that go across the block, and just the the enthusiasm that's there is pretty cool to see,
Oh,
because I
it's
mean
great.
we're all car enthusiasts. We all want that certain car. But again, you gotta, as a car hobbyist, which they always say is the most expensive hobby in the world.
No,
And
owning a boat is more expensive. You know, the best time to get a boat when you bought it and when you sold it.
right, right.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So it's like you gotta look at that. But it's like, again, I mean, it's a cool experience to go to, and yeah, I just went there for fun. I mean, we hung out there for the day. We watched the cars go across. We watched people jumping up out of their seats, throwing their hands up, and if you ever have a chance, I mean, talking to the community as a whole, if you ever have a chance to go to one, it's just go to one and watch. I mean, it's pretty cool,
Oh,
and just
absolutely.
get a idea of what's there. So, but all right, so I mean, to me, being a co-signer or a consigner comes with headaches, it sounds like, too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
trying, you gotta, all the stuff you gotta do to get the car there, get it approved, and once it's there, it's like you gotta go through all the stuff as well. But are the headaches just as bad for the bidder than the person selling? I mean, what are 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 you, would you consider yourself, you're more of a bidder, I
Hmm.
would consider myself more of a bidder, because I know, my car wouldn't, be, I'll say, eligible to go across the auction block, even though, I adore my car the way I love my car, and I think that my car is millions. And
Gorgeous
but
car.
it's
Gorgeous car.
like but again, it's like I don't see my car going across an auction block, but I see myself more as a bidder, and being a bidder, it's almost scary, because you don't know what, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, that's the worst possible thing.
Oh,
And
that's totally correct. Yeah. Yeah.
every time I think of somebody bidding, my brain goes to the episode of Friends where Joey is bidding on a boat, and he thinks it's just guess the price of the boat, and he bid and he won it for $20,000, and he's like, I don't have the money. And it's like, so when you become a bidder, what are some of the ways that you can place a bid if you're eligible? Because that's the first thing, right? You have to be eligible to become a bidder.
Yeah. Well, you fill out an application to the particular auction house that you're interested in. You usually send them a letter of credit, a letter from a bank, corroborating that you have X number of dollars that you can spend, and you're a bona fide bidder, so to speak. Being a bidder is a lot easier than being a consigner. But if you're a bidder, you buy a car, you pay for it, so to speak. You put your key in there to start up, and it doesn't start. You're in a world of hurt, baby. You know, and it happens all the time. Happens
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah. Yeah. But the
So
two,
so
much easier being a buyer, so to speak.
okay. All right. So
Mhm.
what are some of the ways that somebody can place a bid? Because I've heard horror stories, and mostly from commentators on TV when they're talking about the particular auction, and um, I don't remember, I don't recall if it's where they give time for internet bids or phone bids, but I've just heard of the horror stories of somebody in person gets outbid by somebody on a phone or somebody on the internet.
Hey,
So,
it's all going down in real time.
okay.
Everybody is doing it at the same time. You have to be aggressive, especially if you're like I like to be, if I'm going to be attempting to bid, I want to do it myself. And there are a couple of examples. Like Rick and I were going to try to buy a car. Well, it was an '89 IROC Z28 Camaro at their Indianapolis Mecum auction. Okay. Car had virtually no miles on it. 5-speed manual, white, red gut interior, beautiful T-top automobile, but it didn't have air conditioning. Rick and I thought we could probably buy the car. We had a budget of $15,000, $7,500 a piece to buy this car, and then we're going to flip it. Okay. Big surprise. In Indianapolis, cars went for a lot more. That particular automobile went for $35,000.
Wow.
Goodbye. We walked away. You know what I mean, so to speak. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Because I know you mentioned you had to go through a process. Like how detailed would that process be when you say the bank's got to send them a letter? Do
Oh,
they,
yeah,
is it like financials or?
it's very simple to do. Very simple to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like they go through the financials. They're just looking, it's like a mortgage where the bank would say you could afford X amount
The
of
letter of
dollars.
credit to this number amount. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Very, very simple. And it's good to have that because it fleshes out people who don't have the financial wherewithal to bid.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Now, what if so like you'd mentioned that you and Rick went in together. Now, do you see a lot of that? So like if a car, say like it's kind of like um we're like somebody wants to go in and buy uh a VRB and they say, well, let's all four of us go in on it. We'll buy the house and then we each take a profit from it.
Mhm.
So do you see a lot of that too, where multiple parties are going after those high priced cars and then sharing that car?
That's more the exception than the rule. Seriously. Yeah. It doesn't happen that often.
Okay.
No.
So we also talked previously about the previewing of cars, and you had mentioned that as a bidder, you can talk to the owner or the person who is handling that car at the time if the
The
owner's
Haker,
not
correct.
there.
Yeah. No.
Um, what do they can you get into real like deep conversation of that car, or are there limitations of what they can't talk about at a particular auction? And
Well, I
and
tell you.
during that preview, is
Mhm.
that is like um I mean that's the time to kind of start getting a feel of if that car is the right fit for you too, right?
Yeah. The write-ups that the auction houses provide in a brochure of all the cars that are going to go across the block is very comprehensive. But the best way of doing it, if you have an opportunity to talk to the consigner to really pick his or her brain about the car, it's great. It's hard to do because a lot of them do not stay with their cars. Seriously. There was one gentleman at a Barrett Jackson auction. He had a 428 Mustang 70 Circa. He sat with that car. He wouldn't let anybody touch it. You had to be a bidder in order for him to talk to you about it. And he wouldn't let that car out of his sight until it crossed the block. That car sold for $350,000.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Very protective of the aforementioned car. No two ways about it.
Yeah. Now, I've heard I don't know if you have, but I've heard a term called hiker. What is that? Is that a person? Is that just a term used at auctions? What is a hiker?
That is a real person assigned by the auction house responsible for a particular set of automobiles. That person has the keys, they drive it around, they get it to the block and all that kind of good stuff. And if you're lucky enough, which I was in 2019 about my 87 Fiero GT, I talked to the hiker who gave me a lot of really good information on it and made me very comfortable that the car was really a good automobile.
Okay.
which made it easier for me to bid on that car, even though I was ridiculously slow, but I felt comfortable with it. And the hiker, it wasn't going to make his day or ruin his day to tell me the truth about the car, what he really thought the car was like. And it was very affirmative. And it was a great car. Great car. It would
Okay.
have fit
So
in very nicely to my collection, but I prefer my yellow one.
do you have to during all the process of becoming a bidder and filling all that paperwork, do you need to declare a car that you're interested in, or does that dollar amount that you have can go towards any car within?
Any car you want, you
Okay.
don't have to declare ipso facto whatsoever. No,
In your
just
head,
go
you're
for it.
declaring a car that you want to go see, but you don't have to declare anything to
To the
the
auction house? No,
auction house.
not at all. No, no.
And then when the car comes up to the block, and I know I've seen some cars they're actually driven onto the block, some are pulled onto the block, some are pushed onto the block. Does that change? I mean, or is it just like they don't want to start the car because when it's loud or it smells? Is
Well,
there a
it's
preference?
it depends on the venue, so to speak. In large venues where it's well not air conditioned, but there's a lot of flow through ventilation, you can drive the cars on. In places which are much smaller and confined, they push them to avoid the pollution that would be from the car. That's the way to do it.
So as the car is coming across, then is there a section that you need to be in that again declaring at that particular time that's the car that I want? Are you put into a section then to basically then be in front of the block that they can see a hand go up, or how does the actual auction take place when your car that you're interested in comes across?
Okay, let's go back to the old 87 Fiero GT in 2019. Before that, but the car was coming up to the block, it was a couple of ways away from it. I got up on the stage, okay? I was with a bidder's assistant who would be taking my bid, so to speak. I was all over that car. And you can do that. If you're really interested, go big, get up to the stage and really take a look at it and really try to control the experience. You can also be in a seat behind it, so to speak, do it that way. But I like to be right on the stage, communicating my numbers. Also, they're awfully, awfully slow. I'm sorry about that. And I lost that car because it was too damn slow. Darn, unbelievable, Wayne. Unbelievable.
Now, was it based on somebody else there? Was it somebody off-site that was quicker, or was it just that they said once I'm going to go
It
for
was
that
a guy
number?
in the
That's
third row. He goes,
fine.
I want it, 10 grand. And it was the quick hammer, and that was it. Bada bing.
Yeah, damn,
Yeah.
that sucks. Uh, yeah, I
But you
mean,
know what? There's always another car coming.
yeah,
There's always
yeah.
another car coming. Don't worry about it. No. Sure, you
So
feel bad you didn't get that one, but another one will be coming down the road.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were next to one of the guys in the auction helping you. Do you just say yes, and then he gives the thumbs up that cost is good, and then you say yep, and then you go again and yep, he
Yep,
puts his hand up
that's it.
again?
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's the process.
Do you think you had a better advantage than being? I know you said it was the guy that was 3 rows back, but um, it's interesting that you could be up there seeing it right there where he was just in the 3rd row, and it
He
all comes
was
down to
waving his
pictures.
hand like there was no
Yeah,
tomorrow. You couldn't avoid not seeing him.
yeah,
Seriously. He was very
yeah,
animated and he got a good car, I'm sure.
yeah. What was your overall experience at that? From start to finish, applying for to be a bidder or bidder, going there. What? And you said there was perks, and then the day of, and then what was your feeling then when unfortunately it did not go into your garage? Did you
Mhm.
have like any remorse, like, well, this was a wasted trip, or was it just a learning experience too?
I tell you, we've done Barrett Jackson and Scottsdale. We've done Meekum and Kissimmee. We've done Indianapolis with Meekum. all of those auction experiences where we were bidders, it's a relatively easy form to fill out. Your letter of credit is easier to acquire, and the automobiles that were there were wonderful cars to bid on. We were very careful about that. Even and then, but you have to always factor in it's not a cheap thing. Seriously. You have situations where you're going out to Scottsdale, you have the airfare, you got the hotel, you got the rental car, you have food. It's expensive, very expensive, but you have to factor that in. Is the experience worth it? In my opinion, all of the auctions that we've gone to out of state, they were absolutely spectacular. They fit my bucket list better than anything in the world. I had a ball, like at Barrett Jackson. They had this bidders, Sunday night big party. Oh, any type of food that you want, any type of drink that you want. It is just a happening. They have a live band. They did Bohemian Rhapsody. It brought the house down. You will never forget that experience. Never. And it's a gas and a half. And then you have the perks of the lounges, the free food, the Muscle Lounge overlooking the entirety of the auction. It's terrific. And I would
Very cool.
encourage anybody who can to, in fact, do it at least once.
Yeah. Like I said, I did the Mecum one, and it was an experience. And but again, I was there as a spectator. So
Hey, that's good too, man. I tell you, you pay your
exactly.
$35, observe, man. I tell you, it's great stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we start to close out this episode of Fierocast, just a few more questions. Do all the cars that cross the auction block, or is it, let me rephrase that. Do all cars go across the auction block in an auction, or are there some set off to the side that are only for maybe online auctions where they don't cross the block? Or are all these auction houses, that is mandatory that they all go across the block?
They all go across the block, with the exception if you have, let's say, a bus or some sort of like fire truck or something like that, where it's too big to go actually across the dais, so to speak. Those are, they put them on a jumbotron, when it goes to bid, so to speak.
Okay.
But all cars are obligated to go across the block in one way or another.
You bring up a good point, because so we got cars, we've got trucks, like pickups, we've got SUVs, movie cars, pro athlete cars. What about like you said, you got the fire trucks?
Yeah.
What about like buses and semi trailer or trucks, cabs and all that stuff?
On occasion, they cross the block. Yeah. In automobile art, they have a separate section and a day for that stuff to go across the block.
Interesting.
Memorabilia, so to speak. Unusual stuff. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's one of the nicest experiences I've ever had. And, I've done them. I want to do them again. I would love to, go to Vegas for a Barrett Jackson thing. There you have the hype of the auction, plus you have Vegas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like you said, I wouldn't mind going to Monterey. I just see some of the cars that cross out over there. I mean, that's
high-end stuff you won't believe.
Yeah.
And you go on, the neat thing? You go online to any of these auction houses, and you can see online what's going to be in the brochure books and read the description of the automobiles to confirm or deny if you're interested, or just to look at this stuff.
Right.
And see what it is. It is a gas.
Well, my thing would be like these cars that compete at the Pebble Beach and Monterey, the Concours there.
Yeah.
Like what, how many of those have been either sent to auction or won from auction that people are, it's like seeing some of those cars go across.
On Saturday night at Barrett Jackson or at Mecum, those cars on occasion do cross the block. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Seven-figure.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I was just going to say that's probably at least a seven-figure. Yep. So last question, and again, thank you for joining me on this episode. I mean, very informative. Very informative on auctions. What would you say some words of caution to people, whether it's their first time or their 10th time, or are there any words of caution when it comes to auctions?
There's a ton of them. You're a bidder. There's a lot of booze you could be drinking over there. Don't get tanked up and start bidding. You know what I mean? That's a big mistake. And the most important thing is to do your homework and due diligence on a car that you're interested in. Get as much information from the auction house. Try to communicate with the consignor, or if we're footsteps have the hiker, to get as much information on that car before you start bidding on it. Also, have a budget that is realistic. If a car goes beyond that particular budget, do not have a knee-jerk reaction and increase it unless you're really committed to that automobile, because people can get upside down in a car so easy at an auction. You keep popping, and then you're $20,000 over. No. And you have to also factor in, if you're a consignor, you got to get the car out there. And if it doesn't say, you got to get the car back. That's money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, these particular fees, you're going to be paying 10%. The seller pays that. The buyer pays that to the auction house. These are big money things. Then you get it back home. You got to pay sales tax here in Illinois, which is a killer. Ouch. But those are the things. And if you just want to go for fun, go on, do it online with all, and just see what's going on. It's just so much fun. I mean, I've had just a ball and a half doing these things, and I encourage people to do it. They'll be absolutely thrilled.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, thank you for all of the information on auctions. And, I know we've touched base with it. The N.I.F.E has done a feature article on it, but again, as we're coming up into the auction months, it is good to know, and it kind of gives a better insight of what auctions and how they operate and stuff like that, as far as the seller and the bidder goes, and just things to look out for and things to keep in mind when you're there, whether you're there having fun or you're there bidding on something. So
absolutely.
So, well, Wayne, thank you for all the information tonight. And
my pleasure.
We look forward to talking with you again.
Hey, we should do it on car shows. I could write a book on that.
Yep. You know what? That's a good idea.
I could write a book. I've been doing that for 30 years, baby.
All right. Thank you again for listening to this newest episode of Fierocast. Thank you again to Wayne Zane for talking today about auctions and how they function. If you do have a chance to attend one locally, I would recommend it. Here in Chicago, you can find Mecum, and then around the U.S., you can find Mecum as well as Barrett-Jackson. Or you can watch them on Speed TV or a couple other channels that would be listed on their websites to give you a sense of how they work and how they look when you're there. I think most of the time you can catch these also on Speed Channel, but double check your channel listings. This podcast was produced by GoldenEye Graphic and is a production of the Northern Illinois Fiero Enthusiasts. Thank you for joining me today. Again, I am your host, Mike Royer, and thank you for listening to the newest episode of Fierocast. This is episode 57, and it is the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero and the Fiero community. If you'd like more information or have any ideas on future Fierocast, you can email me at mkroyer@fierocast.com. Remember to keep Fieroing, and good night, Fiero owners, wherever you are.